Hey guys, so today I am here in the kitchen and as promised I'm going to show you how to make my fried ice cream recipe. So the recipe I'm going to be showing you today is a spin of a Thai style one, except it's a little bit more modern. So the Thai style one is usually wrapped in filo pastry and they put some sort of topping on it, so maybe like usually chocolate, strawberry or caramel sometime, like most of the time. But the filling is always vanilla. So ever since I started developing my fried ice cream recipe, I think I've only ever done vanilla like once maybe. But every other time I've done different like random flavors such as chocolate, Oreo, pistachio, I can't think of any else. But yeah, I've tried to steer away from just doing plain vanilla because the thing is, if I'm going to do just plain vanilla, people aren't going to want it, you know what I mean? Like, why would people want to try my recipe if it's just vanilla? Like, you can literally just go to a Thai restaurant and eat that. Whereas the recipes I'm doing, you can't really get anywhere else. And not only that, I promise you, if you go and Google Thai fried ice cream with filo pastry, anything to do with this recipe that I'm going to show you today, you will not find it. There is nothing on Google, there is nothing on YouTube, and if you do find it, please send it to me because I've never seen it. The only recipes I've seen online, like on YouTube and Google and anything to do with fried ice cream online that I have seen is literally only the Chinese style. So that Chinese style is like it's a scoop of ice cream, so it's a ball rather than like a square or a triangle. So it's a ball and it's covered in either like a crumb or a batter. That is the only recipes online that you will find for fried ice cream. You will not find this recipe online. Well, I've done a variation of different ones, but today I'm going to be doing sort of long like finger spring roll almost kind of things, but they're squarish, so they're kind of like little parcels, I guess you could say. But in the past I have done square, but I've tried to steer away from doing triangle. I've tried to steer away from doing triangle shape, not only because it's more popular in Thai restaurants and that's kind of the standard shape that they do, but also because it would be a little bit more difficult to do than a square. And also I'm not doing a round like ball, like a scoop of ice cream the way they would do it in Chinese restaurants and stuff. And that's just basically because you can't really wrap filo pastry around a ball, and I just prefer the square anyway. Okay, so on my bench I've got laid out the utensils and the ingredients that I will need. As you can see, this setup changed a little bit just because I went ahead and pre-measured everything just so I can tell you the measurements as I'm going. And yeah. So for utensils, I have a large bowl filled with ice and salt. The salt just cools down the ice even more than it already is, and that cools down the actual ice cream while you're whipping it. Inside that bowl, I've got another bowl that is a little bit smaller that's just sitting inside the ice and salt, and that's how you're going to be whipping it throughout the whole process. And inside that, I've got a spatula and a hand mixer. So for ingredients, I've got 4 cups of thickened cream, 2 cups of full cream milk, 1 cup of granulated sugar, some pistachio essence. If you're doing a different flavor, you can use whatever you're doing. So the base recipe I'm using does not call for pistachio or anything, and I'm actually doubling it. So this is actually double, all these ingredients are actually double what you're meant to use. I also have some vanilla bean paste, some chocolate shards, and some pistachio crumble. So the pistachio essence, the chocolate shards, and the pistachio crumble are actually not in the recipe. Everything else is, but those are just additions that I've made. So the pistachio crumble and the chocolate shards I'm just going to use for garnish, and the pistachio essence is what I'm adding for flavor. So as I said earlier, you can add whatever flavoring you want. So if you want to add chocolate, strawberry, Oreo, you can add whatever you want to this mix. This is just a base recipe, and I'll leave the base of the ice cream that I'm using down below. So I didn't make up the base ice cream. This kind of overall recipe is mine, but the actual sort of little recipes within it, so the ice cream for example, is not my recipe. And I'll leave that down below. As I said, I did double this recipe because I'm making 2 batches today, but if you only want to make 1, then follow the ingredient list that is down below in the link. But if you do want to double it and make 2 portions like I am, then go ahead. Okay guys, so the first thing you're going to want to do to start off your ice cream base is you're going to want to pour into your bowl that is sitting in your ice, your milk, So like I said, I've got 2 cups here, but if you're just following the recipe that I put in the link below, you're only going to be putting 1 cup. To your milk, we're going to add the 1 cup of sugar. Again, like I said, if you're following the recipe below, this will only be half a cup. So now guys, I'm just going to take my electric beater and I'm going to mix that on low to medium until the sugar has dissolved. Okay, so once you have beated that sugar into the milk and the sugar is basically dissolved, you're now going to want to add your cream and your vanilla. Make sure to scrape the excess. The recipe that I'm using calls for vanilla extract and it says 1 to 2 teaspoons. But I'm going to be using vanilla bean paste, so I'm pretty sure this is a little bit stronger, so I'm not going to use as much. And not only that, I'm doing a pistachio flavor. So if you're doing a pure vanilla flavor, maybe you can put a little bit more of this if you're using this. But I'm just going to put a tiny bit just because I don't want it to overpower. I know it probably won't overpower the pistachio, but I'm just going to put a tiny bit. Okay, so for my pistachio flavor, again, if you're using a different flavor, you can do that. But I'm doing pistachio, so I'm just using this pistachio flavoring. I think it's an essence. It doesn't really say how to use it, but I'm pretty sure it's very strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add like half a cupful, and then I'm going to taste it after I've beaten it through and just see how the flavor is. Okay guys, so I did end up actually using the entire bottle of the pistachio essence. So if you are actually making the pistachio flavor like I am, use the whole bottle if you're using the same one that I am. So this is Loran's Oils. It's pistachio flavor and it says it's 3.7 mils. So it's a very small bottle, but I tend to like that really strong pistachio, almost almond essence kind of flavor. So that's why I ended up using the whole bottle. But if you don't like it and you like that more natural kind of thing, then maybe don't use the whole thing. Okay guys, so the next thing I'm going to do that I didn't actually say at the start, and I've just pretty much decided that I want to do it now, because I've realized that my ice cream base is actually still white, and I feel like it is a little bit weird just because it's white and it tastes like pistachios, so it's kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is, instead of adding just green food coloring and it being all weird, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sieve, and I'm going to take my pistachio crumble that I made before, which I made yesterday, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it through the sieve. And so what that's going to do is, because I don't want all the really big crunchy bits in the actual ice cream, I want that on top as a garnish. So what this is going to do is it's just going to get out all those really fine bits and put it into there. So not only will that give me depth of flavor, that will give me color as well. Okay, so now that I've sieved into my ice cream mixture the pistachios, I'm just going to give it a little bit and see if it gives it a good color. Adding that extra pistachio didn't actually really give it a color. It gave it more of a texture, which is actually good, and it also gave it a nice depth of flavor like I said it would, because these pistachios were roasted a little bit and then crushed. So it not only has that sort of really almond essence-y, like strong pistachio flavor, but it has that roasted pistachio flavor too, which gives it lots of depth, which is good. But it didn't really give it too much color. Okay, so I think I am gonna add a tiny bit of green food coloring, just literally the tiny bits to tinge it, because we don't want it to be like a neon green, and we also don't want it to, you know, stain our tongues when we're eating it, but we just want it to get that tiny like hint of green. So I'm literally just going to do like 2 drops. Okay, so I've just added my food coloring and it did give it the slightest bit of green color, and it's perfect. It's just how I wanted it. So let's move on to the next step. Okay, so the next step is to mix this with your beater on high for 10 minutes, and then we're going to put it into the freezer, the whole thing into the freezer covered for 45 minutes. Okay guys, I am now back, and this has been in the freezer for 45 minutes, and it's now it's still like liquidy and like moving, but it's very thick. I don't know if I showed you, I can't remember, after I whipped it for the 10 minutes, but it became very thick and like, not foamy, but sort of light in texture. So it's very thick now. It's been in the freezer for 45 minutes. I didn't end up putting it in there with this big bowl because it wouldn't fit. But I just covered it with the tea towel and put it in the freezer. Okay, so the next step is to whip it again on high for 5 minutes. Okay, so once you have whipped that for 5 minutes, it should be very thick and glossy, and you should be able to tip it without it sort of pouring. It should just slightly move. It shouldn't be like pouring out of your bowl, and it should be very thick. So I have a little baking tin here. You can just leave it in here if you like. Depends on the shape you're going to be wrapping your fried ice cream. But I'm going to be doing it in this sort of very thin tray because I said I'm going to do a sort of little so as I said, I'm going to be doing a very like sort of small and long rectangle kind of shape. Sort of like finger, like lady fingers if you know what or lady arms, I don't know what they're called. Anyway, there's like thing. Anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing. So I have this thingy, and I'm going to be using about half, if not even less, of my mixture because I'm using the rest of it for something else. As you can see, I've got other like mess around the kitchen if you didn't notice that I didn't have when I started because I've been doing things off camera for other things that I'm doing. So I'm just going to pour however much of my mixture into that thing. I think that may be too much. Let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna take out like a couple scoops. So you guys are just gonna spread it out until it's nice and even. So I'm just gonna tap out the air bubbles by lifting the tray up and sort of dropping it on the table like so. And you'll just see all those air bubbles come to the top and sort of pop almost. So guys, the next thing you want to do is put this into the freezer for 2 to 3 hours. The more the better because you want it quite firm, especially even before you start frying it. You're obviously got to wrap it in the filo pastry. And to do that, you want it quite firm and very, very frozen because if it's too soft and soft in the middle, or it's soft in any spot pretty much, it's going to start melting in your hands. So you want it quite firm. So not only is it going to melt in the oil, if it's not firm enough, it's going to melt in your hands while you're trying to wrap it. And you've got to work quite quickly. Okay, so now it has been a couple of hours and our ice cream has been completely frozen. So I've just got a plate with some paper towel on it so that after we fry the ice cream, we can just put it on there and it will just drain the excess oil off. I've got a little spider thing, I think that's what they call it, thingy to actually like scoop out the ice cream from the oil. I've got a pot to fry the ice cream in. I've got some baking paper, a tray, a knife, and a chopping board. Over on the ingredients side here, I've got just some regular canola oil. Nope, this is vegetable oil. But you can use vegetable oil, canola oil, whatever you want to fry it. Obviously not things like olive oil or anything, but any sort of neutral oil that has a neutral flavor. I've also got the chocolate shards and the pistachio crumble that I showed you earlier. I've also got my filo pastry that I've cut into little sort of rectangular shapes that we're going to wrap it with. I've got a little thingy of milk. And we're just going to use that milk to seal off the edges of when we're wrapping the ice cream. You can use egg if you want, you can use just water. Anything will work really. And then I've also got this rose water cream that I made a couple of days ago. And this just has some cream, sugar, rose water and some just beetroot juice just for the color. You can just use pink food coloring if you like, but I wanted to do a little bit more natural. Okay, so the first thing we want to do once our ice cream is completely frozen in the mold is we just want to take off this, of course. So next I'm just going to take my knife and I'm just going to cut around this side just because this doesn't have any what do you call it? Thing. So I'm just cutting around these two sides that don't have the baking paper. And then I'm just going to turn it over onto the chopping board and it should slide out. Okay, so firstly I'm just going to cut it straight down the middle lengthways just so that we have our like sort of finger shapes, I guess. So I'm just gonna slice my thingy down the thing. I didn't actually go down just to make our shapes first. And then we're gonna go this way. So I'm gonna do it at about 2 centimeters. So I'm just gonna cut the full way down now. Down the middle. And then go along the guidelines I just made. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to line my baking tray with the baking paper. This is just to ensure that the ice cream doesn't stick to it, and it just makes it a lot easier. Okay, so next you just want to take your knife, or you can even use a spatula if you like, and you're just going to place each little sort of finger thingy, as you can see, individually onto the tray. Okay, so now as you can see, I've got laid out all of my ice cream fingers or rectangles, whatever you want to call them, onto my tray. I'm just going to pop this back in the freezer, not for long, just so that they can go a little bit harder, because obviously they've softened a little bit, you know, even though they've just been out for like 5 minutes. But yeah, just so they can soften a bit, and then in the meantime we'll do some other things. Okay guys, so the next thing we want to do once we've got that in the freezer is grab our pot that we're going to be frying in and our oil. So as I said before, you can use whatever oil you want. So I'm using vegetable oil, but you can use canola. I'm not sure about things like peanut or sunflower oil. I think sunflower should be fine, but I'm not sure about things like peanut, because they tend to have like a little bit of a flavor. You want a neutral oil just so that it doesn't actually flavor your pastry or your ice cream. So I'm just going to fill this pot up with our oil. Not too much, because I mean it depends how much you're making, but you don't want too much just because you don't want to waste it, of course. And also the more you put in, the longer it's going to take to heat up. So I've just filled the pot up a little bit less than half with my oil. So we're just going to get this on the stove and put it on high. So now that our oil is on this stove, we're just going to set up our wrapping station to wrap our ice creams. So I'm just going to take out my filo pastry from my little baggie that I have previously cut up. And I've got my little thingy of milk, so I'm just going to put that off to the side. I've also got one of these little silicone brushes that you can use just to brush the edges with the milk. You can just use your fingers if you like, but I just prefer to do it like this. I'm going to leave these, actually, I'm going to do, put this here, and I'm going to put these on top of that, just so that I have a little surface to put it on. Okay guys, so I've now got my ice creams back out of the freezer. My oil is still heating up. So I'm just going to show you a couple of them, because these are going to start melting. Also a tip I have is, if you have a freezer nearby, I do have one there, but this doesn't fit in there. So if you're not doing that much, if you like half my recipe or something like that, or if you have a large freezer nearby, I would say keep these in the freezer and sort of take them out one by one. My freezer's in the garage, so it's just a little bit annoying to walk back and forth. So this is what I mean when I say you want to leave a gap between where you place the ice cream and the edge. Then you just want to take that edge and put it on top of it, if that makes sense. And you're just going to fold until about halfway. And this is where you're going to put in the edges. So you're just going to press it down like this, and then push in the edges like so. Now it could break a little bit, but it's fine. And then you're going to roll it over once again, and then you're going to push down those edges. Just going to pick up that little broken piece. And it is ice cream, remember, so it can be quite soft, so you can sort of push it and mold it a little bit. So this is where you're going to take your milk with your little brush and just do the end. And you want to quite, not necessarily soak it, but you want to sort of soften it with the milk, just so that it's sort of pliable. So again, lay out your sheet of pastry, take a ice cream. As you can see, it is melting a little bit there. You want to have a cloth on hand. I've just got mine here on my door handle, just so that you can wipe your hands off, because you don't want to get like ice cream and pastry and stuff everywhere. So again, a gap, fold it over, like so. And now, because I've got quite a big rip here, I'm going to put my milk on now, and I'm going to use quite a bit. I'm also going to put it on the edges, so just so that softens up and it folds nicely. Then I'm going to fold one more time and fold in those edges on the side. And what you want to do is you kind of want to hold it there just so it sort of molds to it. So sort of see how it's there, you just want to do that and hold it just for a second so that it molds. Okay, folding it on the other side, and then you'll have this last edge here to fold in, or second last actually. And you should end up with this little parcel, and you can also just get a little bit of milk from your brush and brush the ends so that they stay closed. And again, so what I'm actually doing at the moment is I'm putting these in the freezer as I go. So I've got this one ready now and I'm just going to put it in the freezer. So guys, while we're waiting for our oil to still heat up, I'm just going to start plating up the elements that are other than the fried ice cream part, I guess. So all the little components that are going with it. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my pistachio crumble, and what I'm going to do is make a sort of line across the plate, and it doesn't really matter if there's little thingies everywhere because they actually quite looks nice. It looks kind of rustic, and you kind of want to make like a mountain, almost like a little pile in the middle. So I'm just going to pop little dollops. And then we're just going to leave the chocolate shards to put on top. Okay, so now that my oil is hot, you can almost see it steaming a little bit, or smoking. So just so this house doesn't smoke up and stuff, I'm going to turn my fan on. It might be a little bit loud, but it should be fine. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm just going to take my little spider thingy, and I'm going to place one of my fried ice cream thingies into the basket. And I'm just going to pop it in, and it should start going brown straight away. You want to spoon the oil on top of it, and sort of twist it and turn it so that it's all getting fried. And it shouldn't be in there for very long at all. So as I said, you want it to be in there for a very short amount of time. And as you can see, they're not perfect, they're all different shapes, but Okay, so guys, now I have my ice cream fried and my plate all ready. Just a little tip, if you're frying a lot, I only fried 3 just for this part, but if you're frying a lot, and I even did it for this just because I had to move cameras and lights and stuff, but if you're frying a lot of them, or you're making video like I am and you have to move cameras and lights and thing, or anything in between your plating and your actual frying, if it's going to take a long time, I would suggest, even though you've just fried them, put them in the freezer, just so that the ice cream inside doesn't melt. The outside will still stay crispy, or at least it should. But anyway, so yeah, let's start plating. So like I said before, as you can see, mine aren't perfectly, they're all different kind of shapes, I guess. But that doesn't really matter. So it doesn't have to be perfect, as long as it tastes good, I guess, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, you know, I mean, I guess unless you're serving it in a restaurant, it might look silly if it's not perfect, but, you know. So I'm just gonna add my chocolate shards. Okay guys, so we are in the kitchen and I'm here with my taste tester, Umi. And she is going to taste the ice cream. So I put it back in the freezer so it didn't melt because she was eating lunch. So now she's going to taste it.
Do I taste everything separate or do I do it all together?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. I'm just going to taste this. What's this?
That is rose water cream.
It tastes like those musk sticks.
Oh yeah.
Okay, can I just find it?
Oh, and it's not food colouring in the rose water cream, it's beetroot juice.
Are there different flavours? Is this vanilla? Pistachio.
Pistachio.
Let me taste it.
Okay guys, that is it for this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you want me to make more cooking videos or ice cream videos or whatever you want, I don't know, comment down below. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye!